This episode is gonna be again about evolutionary psychology, and it is gonna be a good episode. I at least hope. But yeah, I'm gonna see you after the intro as always. And today is a really fucking beautiful day, which means that I am gonna be able to just ride my bike, even though it is actually also warm. It is pretty warm for February, but for me it is like I enjoy that. I know that there's gonna be a lot of people that are like, okay, I don't want to do just my winter sport, and I just want to do whatever. I don't want to be at home and just do nothing, and it should be snowing outside. But I think I like it because it is warm, and I like it when it is warm. But yeah, anyways, I really am looking forward to going through this episode, but before I go through it, there's a few things that I'm willing to talk about. First of all, the whole look of the video, and also especially me with the new setup, is hopefully a little tiny bit better. Also, the audio quality should be a little tiny bit better since I'm further away from my computer, which means that my microphone is not going to pick up so many noise or as many noises before. So this should be a good thing. I at least hope. I really am hoping that it is doing so. But yeah, the first thing is actually the podcast. And I've recently seen that a lot of people start to listen to the podcast, which is amazing. So if you're listening, I am happy to just have you on here. Like, I really am. So, but also on the flip side, if you're in a YouTube video, but you feel like, well, actually listening to it would be something that's quite amazing, then please check out the link in the description. It should be the first or the second one, and it should lead you to a page where you can also choose where to listen to the podcast on, which might be Spotify, which might be Castbox, which might be Bullethorn, I guess, which is a quite new one, and I haven't heard of it before, but it is there, and it is just also sharing my podcast. It seems to be the case, which is fine with me, and I'm fine with it. But yeah, something else. The second thing, the notes. As you're then gonna see in this article that we're going to go through, or also actually in the episode, I'm highlighting certain things. I'm highlighting certain things that I think are important because they're then going to be in a summary. I often fuck it up with the summary, so it's not going to be there immediately, most often, and I'm actually very sorry about that, and I should change that because it is, at least in my point of view, something that's quite amazing. And I think that this is a cool thing. That you're just having a summary of the whole episode, of everything that I am going through, which is quite cool. The last thing is the music. It is just like for personalization. So some people like to have some background music, some people like to have no background music. And so I've just thought like, well, if you do want to have some background music, then please just check out the link. And there is certain, it is a playlist with certain tracks, and they are just an hour long and so that it is going to cover the whole video. Everything is fine. Different genres, different, also volume. You can also change the volume there. But yeah, anyway, let's actually go through what we're here to do, which is evolutionary psychology. I've actually wasted 3 minutes. I'm sorry about that. The next thing that we're going to talk about is parenting and kinship, which is something that's pretty interesting, or I at least hope that it is going to be something interesting. But I think so. It should be. It could be. Well, let's say it could be, because I don't know. Parenting and kinship. Parenting dispositions and behavior can be predicted at the most general level through the following 3 contexts. Let's actually also highlight that. Paternity uncertainty. For example, are children really mine? This is one of the reasons why men generally invest less in children, which is, by the way, something, because I guess there's 3 contexts. This is the first one, because I'm certainly not sure if it is really the case that men are not just taking care of the children as much as women are doing, or women are doing, just because they think like, well, is this really my child? Are these really my children? I don't really think this way, but it could be. Step parents more likely to beat, abuse, ignore children who are not theirs. Yes, which I guess just makes sense, kind of. Women remind men the children look like them. Wow. And paternal grandparents invest less than maternal ones. Men who perceive their wives as faithful and trustworthy also invest more in the children. So, which could definitely be the case. Like, if I see that my spouse or whoever is like just a really great person, then I think, well, it would just make sense on one hand, just because if you're wasting some time, not wasting some time, but you're investing some time into this child, into the children, which are probably going to be a huge part of the life and also the world of my wife or of my spouse, then chances are also higher that my wife is gonna like me more just because I'm doing so. So I don't know if it is just because I think that I want to do it in terms of this context, but I would rather say that it is because, okay, I'm gonna look better to my wife, and my wife is gonna like me more, those things. Like, I really think it is in such a way, kinda, even though it is quite something negative, but yeah. Alternative uses of the resource. When can I get the biggest bang for the buck? My children's or my sister's? Nurturing or looking for another mate? Young women are more likely to kill their infants because they can produce more later on under better conditions. And probably. Young women without a providing man kill their infants more often, except when they're old, because they won't have another chance at procreation. Men high in status offer less parental care and ramp up their mating efforts. Maybe just because they can. Just because they think like, well, I can do that, I can whatever. So I am also going to do that. I, by the way, hope, just because I'm kind of just think that I'm hearing something, I hope that the audio is fine. I hope that there's no echo, which is something that I'm seeing. Hello? Because I think there is something. Even though like all over the place there's close. Well, I don't know. Nevertheless, children's ability to survive and reproduce. Parents invest more in children most able to convert their effort into fitness. Does not mean they always invest more in the healthiest child. Sometimes curing a sick one can make more sense, but they tend to allocate investment strategically. Ill and deformed children receive less help and are killed more often. The question now is this the case for now, or has this been the case, for years and years and years, like in history? Because like I actually have to say, and it is something that I do not want to say, but it just makes sense. It just makes sense that you're thinking about survival, that you're thinking about procreation or procreating. You're thinking about just, what is the best for you, kind of, which is something that I tend to not like to do. Because most often it is just a good idea to think about other people, and it is just often a good idea to think about what they want to have, what they think of, what they want to do, whatever. Thinking about them and thinking about whatever another person wants to have, wants to do, wants to whatever, is often a pretty good idea. Especially when you're thinking about job interviews, then it is always a good thing to think about and also talk about whatever you're going to be capable of doing for your employer. Just coming up to this person, to her, and being like, well, I don't want to be in your company just because I want to make more money, because I think that there's going to be a lot of just things that I can experience. There's a lot of things that I can be doing. There's a lot of things that I can see and whatnot. And instead of this, being like, well, I do want to be in your company because I think that I could help you. I think that by learning and by just you teaching me some things, I can do quite a lot for your company. And I think that I could just be helping your company. And I think that I could just thrive your company and help your company to grow, to scale, to whatever. Which just totally makes sense. Because of course, if you're the employer and somebody comes up to you and says something like this, then you probably think more about employing this person than somebody that is just thinking about his or her efforts and all life. I think it just makes sense. I think it's just something that we all can think of. But really, I'm not seeing this very often. And I unfortunately also don't that often hear people talking about this. Even though, on the flip side, my English teacher just basically told us this in the very last lessons that we've had the past year or the past semester. And I was really appreciating this. Even though, it is something that I talk about pretty often, and it is something also that I'm thinking about really often, and therefore it is just also something like, well, I know that, and I also understand that you're talking about this and you just want us to know that, but I already know it. Like, yeah, kinda. Interestingly, resources can change the pattern of parental investment. Mothers with little resources followed the predictable pattern of investing less in prematurely born babies, which is a high risk, while mothers with lots of resources invested more in high-risk infants than low-risk ones. Who said that money is the root of all evils? Question mark. Yeah. I mean, no. Kind of. It can be. I think it can be. It totally can be. Yeah. Women as the primary caregiver have evolved more psychological adaptation for nurturing, including better at decoding facial expressions, particularly negative ones, general reduction in risk-taking, which just makes sense, and reduction in risk-taking when paired with babies. Which, like, I first of all actually thought about, like, okay, you're not gonna just do any bullshit with your baby, but I also have to say, like, general reduction in risk-taking. Like, you're not gonna risk your life because you know that your baby's gonna be alone then. You know, of course the father is there, but maybe you're not trusting really in this person, you know? Maybe you're not really trusting in this person, and therefore it just also doesn't make any sense if you're actually, taking a lot of risks, you know, and leading a risky life and shit. It just really makes sense. The parent-child conflicts. Parents and children have 50% of genes. Share 50% of genes, but that also means they are 50% different. That leads to potential conflict. The question now is, what are the other 50% of genes, or where they're coming from? Like, is this like, which is something that I heard quite often, like that you're gonna just have some genes like from your grandparents, kind of from your grandpa and grandma. Some kind of, so that you're having some similarities with them, which could also just mean that it is like 50% of the genes from your mother and father, that of course, like, they're also having 50% of the genes from their parents and shit. Which is, by the way, something that I didn't know. And I do, at this point of time, want to point out that I don't know if this is right. I don't know anything about evolutionary psychology. I'm just reading a book summary. I'm just reading about something that I'm generally interested in. And I don't know if this is the truth. I don't know if this is just really the case. So, yes, just please look it up. If you think like, well, I'm really not quite sure, then please do that, you know? A child always gains in seeking more investment, while a parent might gain more by sharing their support among several children or looking outside of the relationship. Which also makes sense. Like, all these things just make a lot of sense. The theory of parent offspring and more in general genetical self-interest and different interests within families predicts that children will want more of the parents' resources, probably. The mother-child conflict starts in the uterus, with children trying to get as much as possible, even if it gets unhealthy for the mother. Wow. Children want to be breastfed for longer than mothers want. Yes, I think it has totally been the case for me, kinda. Or just not just the opposite could also be the case. Like, I don't know. Children seek to get more resources than their siblings. Or at least they try to do that, I guess. Parents will want to give less than the children requests. Parents want to wean children sooner. Parents punish conflict between siblings. And parents encourage more cooperation among siblings than they really want. Yes, you know, which I do think is not something bad. I'd say. I don't know if it is just from the perspective of nature on if it is then something bad. But I think in terms of like society and just being not a fucked up human being, I guess actually having siblings is just a pretty huge deal. I've also seen it kind of which is not often, which is not always the case. But I guess if you're having some siblings, then you're just generally also more likely to be more of a social person. I guess I have a feeling, kinda. Because, you're dealing with another person and you're just doing something with another person. And I mean, at least for me, it has been the case that my brother has been very close to me when we were children. Like, we have been doing quite a lot of things together, whether it is just playing PlayStation or just doing whatever. Which, of course, like, there is a bond. And there's, of course, like, okay, I'm going to give you this and you're going to give me that. So I think it is just an important thing. This is my opinion. Parent-offspring conflict also increase in the presence of new offspring, as that means more competition, and in the presence of half-siblings, since that means competition or competing with someone who has even less genetic relatedness. Isn't it relatedness or something? Kind of seems or sounds a little tiny bit better. even though it does not. Well, yeah, anyway. The parents-child conflict over mates. Parents and offspring's interests also diverge when it comes to the voice of mates. Children will gain more from selecting a genetically superior partner because their offspring will inherit 50% of their genes, but parents only have 25% of their genes in common with the grandchildren, so they will gain more if their children select a partner that promotes their interests independently of genetic equality. Say, for example, a mate that will further their status and economic well-being. I see. I really see. But as we have seen right now, there's actually some echo and it pisses me off quite a lot. Is it... Hello? Is it below me? Could be the case. Because I'm actually going to show you. I don't know if you can see that, but there's clothes all over the place. Just because I do not want to have some fucking bounce back of whatever. Maybe it's also just the front of me. It could be. Maybe I should be having something like that as well. That I'm having some clothes back there. I could try that. I really could. Maybe I'm also gonna. Even though I'm already having maybe I'm actually also gonna. Because I'm actually having some bambooish... fuck my wall. No. Everything is breaking down. Because I'm actually having some bamboo-y thing on the back of my... I'm sorry. Because I've had actually a white piece of paper here just because of the bounce back, so that I'm actually having more light on the other side because there is a window there on this side. On this side there's a window, as you can probably also see. But what I want to show you is that this bamboo thing is having a bamboo side. I don't actually know if it is bamboo, but it's just wood. But on the other hand, there's this side, and maybe which is made out of just some fabric shit, which could be a tiny bit better for even though it just really doesn't look that nice, to be honest. It really does not, but it could do just a better job at reducing some of the bounce back. Hello, are you doing this? No, actually no. I'm not quite sure, but it looks really awful and shitty because, yeah. Because it is what it is, This is especially true for fathers since they retain fertility for long and they have more interest in securing new possible future mates. Is it really the case? We've heard the last time that elderly people and elderly men especially are more likely to just have another spouse or just another girlfriend or whatever or boyfriend as well. I don't give a fuck about that compared to females. The evidence indeed proves that offspring prioritize physical attractiveness more than their parents. Well, it's actually offspring. Is it yeah, it is children. I'm sorry. Parents prioritize family background, which is it just also makes sense, because as a parent you think well, I don't give a fuck if this person is attractive or not, but if this person is wealthy or high in status, it is just always going to be something nice and it is always going to be something good. So, yeah, parents and offspring are in conflict over the pursuit of a short-term mating strategy. It is hypothesized that a short-term mating strategy can compromise the status and reputation of the family, which I guess is something that people in certain cultures are thinking about more than some other people in other cultures. I'd say, because, I would say, Eastern cultures are more into respect, more into just, I think everything around respect. I do have to say, and I do think, I'm not sure it is something that I kind of have seen, but I don't know, that people coming from Eastern regions, that it is more often the case that they are caring more about, as I said, respect. As, compared to, I can compare my home state, which is Austria, to just other cultures, that are also living in Austria, and I've seen things and I kind of have recognized some things, I guess at least. And I do have to say, we don't really that much care about respect, Of course, it just has some role, but it's not just that of a huge deal, I would say, Parents indeed find a short-term mating strategy far more acceptable for themselves than for their sons and especially daughters. which is interesting, but which is also something that I think you have seen as well, kind of. My note, this was eye-opening. This conflict on mate selection was truly a novel and genius revelation for me. Even after tens of books on evolutionary psychology, I had never thought about it. I'm still not 100% bought into it, as offspring might simply want an attractive partner because they will have sex with them. Parents don't care, since they don't have to live and have sex with this person, but it's still an interesting new point of view. Yes, it indeed is. It really is. Conflict changes over time. Manipulation, of course, goes both ways, with both parents and children trying to manipulate each other in what's in their own best interest. Probably. Even though it sounds so negative, I'd say, kind of, but it just makes sense, and I think it's just what nature did to us, it's just how we are. Maybe it's just the selfish gene, which is also a book, by the way. I think I've also been talking about it, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, since parents and children share 50% of their genes, sometimes there is an overlap in their common interest. But as the time goes by, so does the interests overlap. As both parents and children age, parents become less useful to children, both in terms of producing new offspring with a 50% relatedness, and in terms of direct help to the self. Yes, of course, you're not just... as people get older, you're not expecting new siblings, I guess, which I guess, and as I kind of feel like is a huge deal for one, that you're having just people 50% like you, kind of, which is actually not that much, and also compared to your grandparents, you're 25% as they are, if I can say it in this way. I'm not sure, but it is like, it's really interesting. Like, it's not like, I thought that it would be more, I guess. And I thought that it might be like, just 80% your parents and shit. But like 50% is not that much. It's really not that much. But I think it just also, it also means that you're gonna evolve, and that just each generation is gonna be kind of different. That each generation, maybe it's also just because adaptation, you might be not really 100% like your parents, just because you have to adapt, because nature knows that things are changing, nature knows that things are gonna change, which means that that you need to be able to adapt to these things. And I'm not quite sure if you're able to adapt that well if you're just fully like the previous generation, that you're fully like the previous generation, which has been doing certain things in a certain way, and you're like just not like that. And therefore, you're also just able to adapt to things, to new things, way better. I'm actually just very sorry about such a big thing here. Well, which could be the case, but I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not a biologist. I'm just interested, and I hope you are as well, because this is actually the end of the episode, and now again everything is breaking down, not responding. But yeah, anyway, I wish you the best health, of happiness, and all success, and also hope that you're going to remind yourself when you're going to be remembered, which basically means your legacy, and basically also means just being a nice person and then being remembered as a nice person. On the flip side, 3 other questions that I'm having for you are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? These 3 questions hopefully going to show you your purpose, which is a huge thing, and maybe even a business idea. On the other hand, because a lot of companies started out with doing something that really pissed them off in the first place, and then they solved it, and then they suddenly had a business. But yeah, I hope I'm going to see you the next time. So please subscribe to the podcast. I would appreciate that. Please just do it. No, I would really appreciate that, I really would. But I care more about me being able to help you better. So if there's something that you want to tell me or that I should be going through, please write it down into the comments, I know, just hit me up on social media. I always appreciate that. Like, I would really appreciate that. Even if it is about just some shit like, okay, I thought about this and that, and could you expand on this and that and whatnot, and what do you think of this and that? I would just really love to do that. But yeah, I'm hopefully going to see you the next time. So, bye. Ciao. I'll see you. Is there just another language that I can? Bye. Arrivederci. I could also be doing like tschüss. Auf Wiedersehen. Is there something else? I don't know French, unfortunately. Just a bit. Like, je suis un baguette or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But yeah. Anyway, I'll see you just in a bit, actually. Maybe as well. Could be.